Hello and welcome to the second ever episode of Ashes to Go. I am your host, Redbyrd, and with me is BDLG. Bordy, another night of Ashes. Are you ready, brother?
I'm ready, man. I'm excited to talk about it. And now even more so that, I came on and as soon as I turned on my camera, you were like, dang, dude, you're looking good tonight, man. I thank you, Red. I appreciate that, man.
Well, guys, if you didn't know, we record live on Twitch every Sunday night. And everybody in chat will vouch that I said nothing of that sort. Bordy, we are going to talk about classes tonight, which is like one of my favorite features about Ashes of Creation. So I'm pretty stoked about this episode. But first, we're going to go over the leaked images of the Dwarven race, as well as they put a dev discussion up on the forums. And we're going to kind of give our little 2 cents about the topic matter. So first, Bordy, Steven, when I say they, I mean Steven, leaked images of the Dwarf this week and the what they said would be like mid-level armor. And dude, what are your first thoughts about the Dwarf and the artistic style that they're putting out there?
So first, can we even really call this a leak since Steven put it out? It's more like a tease,
called it a
right?
leak.
More like a teaser. Yeah, like he's dropping his own leaks out here. It's kind of funny, but
yeah,
it looks amazing, dude. In my opinion, the dwarf looks really, really cool. I typically don't play dwarves in games, but this particular model looks really, really good. It looks very dwarven. The armor looks very mid game ish, I think. It just looks good. I don't know what to say about it other than it looks really good. It looks just like what I would expect a dwarf to look, and just like the armor I would expect a dwarf to wear. I really like the helmet. It's dope looking, man.
Yeah, I would assume this is the mountain version of the dwarves, and it's spot on, dude. You can ask for a more dwarvy dwarf, right? I mean, this is pretty. It gets me pretty excited. I typically don't play dwarven classes, but I do enjoy like the dwarven race from the lore perspective generally, and they nailed it, man. This is dope looking, and this appears to be a pretty what it seems to be a character model, not like any concept art or anything. It seems like this is pretty fleshed out, don't you think?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Whenever I initially looked at it, it definitely looks like a character model to me, but who knows, man? That's what I thought, though.
Yeah, the details, and again, you kind of notice this as we learn more and more about Ashes of Creation. They are very focused on the details, and they want to get all of these things right down to, of course, like races and classes and node systems and all that stuff. It's all extremely detailed, and we're not even in alpha yet, Bordy. So it's going to be awesome to see as they progress through the alpha phases and the beta phases, exactly how much of this detail we're going to get. And this was an exciting little piece that he kind of showed us, which I think most people were excited to see.
Yeah, I like it, man. I want more of it.
All right. Speaking of more dev stuff, we got the dev discussion going on, and this was dev discussion number 21. And so then, if you guys aren't not familiar with the kind of the system they go about, in the forums, they kind of because I think Steven does a lot of Q&As, but these are on the opposite side of things where they kind of reach out to the community and start like a little bit of a topic discussion off of, a little bit of a teaser or whatever they want to do to prompt the forum talks. So this one was up number 21, and it was quest breadcrumbs. So the prompt was, what is your opinion, on quest breadcrumbs, meaning target locations, highlighted quest givers with icons above their heads, etc. How much is too much and how much is too little? Bordy, I thought it'd be cool on the podcast today to kind of give our 2 cents in here and kind of our experiences with MMOs and what do we think is the right amount of help, so to say, when it comes to questing?
So unfortunately, I think the right amount of help this day and age in questing is that you have to have highlighted target locations. You have to have highlighted quest givers with icons, and you have to basically hold people's hand running them through quests. Now, is that what I prefer? Absolutely not. I don't like that at all, to be honest with you. But I think in this day and age, whenever you're creating an MMO, man, games like World of Warcraft have kind of spoiled us to that. And so now whenever you go out and you quest, people get real frustrated when they can't go pick up their quest, go turn it in, pick up their quest, go turn it in, pick up their quest, go do it, go turn it in a very fast fashion, because everybody's trying to power level and etc. versus going and exploring the world and finding out the mystery themselves. And to me, that takes away a lot of the fun, man. I enjoy. I've also played games where there was literally no information at all. You don't even know that a person gives a quest until you walk up to the NPC and you talk to that person. So whenever you walk up to the NPC and you talk to the NPC, then you know there's a quest, and then they say, "Hey, go do this," and then you have to go do it. You have to go find that person out in the world, and you don't know where they are. They kind of tell you in the dialogue where they are. I find that to be very interesting, man, and I really like that, because I don't particularly like doing quests in games anyway. Like, I like more of a sandbox open feel, but whenever there's something like I can just happen upon an NPC and talk to that person, and they say, "Hey, this guy needs help or whatever over here, but he's in such and such a village," but they don't tell you where that village is. I like that, man, because then you have to go explore, you have to go figure out what's going on. So that's my preference. But again, I think this day and age, if you did that, man, people would tilt. They'd tilt off the face of the planet, dude, and they would hate it. They just want to get in there and get to max level as quickly as possible and move on. So that's my 2 cents, man.
Yeah, so I'm going to use, I'm an Everquest guy. I kind of grew up playing that game. And so I'm going to use the 2 Everquests as maybe the examples of what not too much and then too little. So I think too little in today's terms would be like what you're mentioning for sure. No signification of any kind of quest. You just kind of got to go talk to people throughout the town. And then as you talk to people, they give you hints and from step to step to the quest without any, like you said, just dialogue basically is all they're going to give you. So then you would just follow the dialogue and complete the quest that way. There's a lot of mystique involved with that, and I think some people really do enjoy questing like that. But like you said, I think there are a specific demographic in the MMO audience that do want quick questing because they want to get to end game. They just want to move through the quest. They don't really care about the lore or the conversation that's being had with any of those, those quests. So, sometimes I can think that maybe if you add too much difficulty with those quests, a lot of players aren't going to experience them at all. Which, someone I guess could probably make the argument that are the people that are rushing through the quest and clicking through all the text really experiencing them in anyways.
They're not. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. So, on the other hand, I think too much help was EverQuest 2. EverQuest 2 had a system where you could, I forget what it's called, like a ley line or, it was like a little bit of like a path of magical fairy dust that would literally lead you around any obstacle on the map that would take you to your next quest point. So, it would basically hold your hand to make sure that you got the most efficient path to your next quest step. And I think that's a little too much. I mean, I think it's fine to like have quest markers on maps and stuff like that to kind of help progress the quest and the story along. You don't want to make it too hard to like, institute your lore and storyline to your players. But at the same time, I think it's ridiculous to kind of like literally, I mean, they're basically doing the quest for you at that point. So other than killing the mobs or picking up the item or whatever the quest is about. So I think a nice balance in between those two things, not like completely leaving people in the dark, but not like hand holding to the point where like it's, literally like you're on like the tracks of a roller coaster, kind of just being moved along by, whatever the progression of the quest is.
Right. Or you can just press auto run and run to your next quest.
Yeah. I've played games like that too, where you literally just, like it just takes you to the next quest and that's it, man. Yeah, that's to me, that's too much. And I think there's a nice happy medium in there.
Yeah, I think there is for sure. I do. I just am a little bit more old school, a little bit more hardcore in the way that I would like to see questing done, because that's just kind of the background that I come from. And I like sandboxes more than theme parks. But this day and age, man, if you did that, man, like I said, people would tilt and I think your game would be in trouble. So I agree. I think some sort of balance in between the two would be the spot. But I think that's the question they're asking. So when we say some sort of balance in between the two, I think we're being vague. But I think you explained it well enough that you get the point across there.
Well, I'll get more specific. I think really like obviously I think a questing system is best had allowing like an open like an open-ended selection. And the best questing I've had, and I'm me, I'm not really a quester. I think the game with the best questing right now is Elder Scrolls Online. You can literally do any quest at any level in any zone whenever you want to. And those quests do kind of hold your hand a little bit and get you to where you need to be. But you can literally do any quest at any time. And there are main story quests, and I think that's probably essential to most games that have any type of lore or story that they're trying to tell. But outside of that, you can literally wander around and do all of these other quests. And you sometimes you stumble upon a little hidden quest that will give you a new like little pet or a mount or something like that. And I think those things are awesome, like, hiding them, but still allowing the players to, be aware of that, anywhere you go, there's going to be a quest you can do.
Yeah, I agree. Their questing system is excellent, but the only problem I have with their questing system is that it almost promotes single player play. So whenever you get into something like ESO, you go in there and then you almost don't want to group with someone because every quest is voice acted, which is amazing. It's an awesome experience. But like, I know, like, whenever we grouped together and we tried to quest, it just didn't work. And then anytime I tried to group with anybody else to quest, those things didn't work because it was kind of like an immersion thing. You wanted to sit there and listen to the story and go on. So, and then it kind of splits up what you want out of an MMO. It makes it more of a single player game. You can literally go into ESO and play it single player without ever grouping up with anyone. And I don't know that I like that, to be honest with you. an MMO, in my opinion, is meant to be played with people. So there's got to be a fine line there too, I think.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Obviously, I mean, it sounds like you're speaking from experience. Maybe like you have like a friend that maybe doesn't like questing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I mean, I just said that we quested together and it didn't work.
Yeah. Okay, so interestingly enough, I know games that have tried what's group questing. So like, they'd have quests that were meant to be single player, and then they had quests that you had to find other people to help you with. I can't remember what game that I want to say it was EverQuest too. But then, then you had people that like despised the group questing. Like, I don't want to have help when I want to do a quest. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you're ever going to please anybody with any questing system that you put in place. But I do think in today's day and age, unfortunately, that you do have to have some type of breadcrumb. And I would like to see them push the boundary of the minimal end, like you've been talking about with like how UO was and how the original EverQuest was. Just give us enough to know that there are quests and that, we need to head in a general direction or whatever like that, and then allow players to kind of experience and build that, that experience on their own.
Yeah, for sure. There weren't any quests in UO at all. You didn't quest. It was a complete sandbox. You didn't do it. There were 0 quests in that game whenever I played it back in the day. There may be now because the game's still going. But you get the point. Yeah, like there were other games that were just on the very minimalistic end. And I don't think you can do that anymore. So yeah, I think they've got to find a medium there for sure.
Yeah. Yes. So that was a good discussion. I think a lot of people in the forum had some interesting comments as well. So don't forget to go over there and check those out, that little forum thread over at the Ashes of Creation forum. So on to our main topic today, Bordy, and one that I'm very, very excited to discuss with you is the class system. Now, Bordy, I kind of lean towards MMOs that do allow you to personalize your character and kind of give you a niche that you can kind of identify with and be proud of. I know a lot of MMOs are kind of going in the pattern of like classless systems, to where you just get to kind of pick what weapon you want to use and what spells you want to use, and you kind of build your own character that way. And it gives a lot of freedom to switching back and forth, and so you're never stuck in one vein. But I kind of lean towards more of like the ones that, or the MMOs that have a lot of different special niches that you have to choose into, and that there are like markers of identification within that class, such as like a ranger or a warlock or an elementalist or something like that. So Ashes of Creation is not going to disappoint me, Bordy. I don't know how you feel about the classes. We'll talk more about that soon. But they have 8 base classes, and they have a system where you choose out of those 8 base classes a subclass, which will create one of 64 unique subclass variations, Bordy. So just that number, I'd like to see your opinion. 64 individual named classes. What are your thoughts on the the initial number of classes that are going to be available in Ashes of Creation.
It's a lot, man. It's almost overwhelming, man, but I think overwhelming in a good way, because here's my preference for classes. You said yours is being able to pick a specific subclass, kind of having that niche. Mine is having variations, right? That's why I prefer a skill-based system over a class-based system, because typically you have somebody that's going to prefer X weapon over a sword or whatever, and then that just oftentimes promotes a lot wider range of play styles, so you're not just playing somebody with a cookie cutter warrior build or whatever. And that's what frustrates me a lot of times about these class systems that are so shallow almost, which we've seen in a lot of games before, where it's like, if you're not playing that meta, then you're going to get crushed. Or if you're not playing that meta, then you might as well not even be playing that class, right? You might as well go to another class. But so I think that Ashes of Creation, the way they are doing it, is fine. I am 100% down for this, because it seems like there's going to be enough variation. It seems like there's going to be a whole lot of variation, and it doesn't seem like any one class will really be the same. I'm sure, we'll still see our build guides and all of those things that are going to happen, and we'll be creating some too over there at ashesfans.com. But we will have, we're going to have all those things, but I think that it's going to be such a wide range of class variation that we're not going to be stuck in that. At least that's what I hope. And they have some interesting quotes down here that I think we'll get into here in a minute that kind of allude to that as well. So hopefully that's the hope, man. 64 is a huge amount of classes. And I think one of my concerns, Red, is that that's a lot of work, man. Are they going to be able to deliver on 64 variations here? Like, this system is incredibly deep, man. Is this going to happen, dude?
I don't want to start this trend, but yeah, I think it's going to happen. You know what I mean? I just feel like this is a little weighty, but we've seen something very similar, and even in a larger fashion done in an MMO, and that was Archetypes. Archetypes had like 81 something, I think was the number of different classes, and combinations and everything like that. So we know that something like this can be done because it has been done before. And yeah, I think this type of system lends itself to more like what you were talking about than a classless system, because a classless system typically, like you said, it gives freedom to the players to choose the skills that they want to, but then you have to balance just based off of a skill. So then maybe there's this one really powerful skill, and then literally everybody's spamming that one skill. And so this kind of prevents that in some way. And I think a lot of people do kind of, they will refuse to play the meta build. So then they will I'm a tank and everyone's going to be a tank and no one's going to make me do anything different. Or I'm a paladin and I always want to be a paladin. I'm not going to do anything different. So this is kind of I don't know. This should promote some type of a meta. Obviously, all MMOs kind of find their way there. But you had mentioned a good quote before of the podcast. So why don't you share that from the design team?
Okay, so a couple of the quotes that I wanted to share is, number one, it says, balancing is such an important aspect of the class system that we want to make sure that there's a role to be had for every possible combination. That was quoted by Steven. The other quote says that you don't make 64 classes for only 4 to be played. That was shared by Peter Pylone. I think I said that name right. I don't know if I did or not. He's the senior producer at Intrepid, and those are encouraging because at least they know. Steven's so on top of his game, man. They know you can't make 64 classes and then just have it so meta that only 4 of these classes are getting played, because then that defeats the entire purpose of having this many classes. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, and I'm excited for it, man. I think you made some good points. I think it can happen. I just hope that they do it. We've seen so many MMOs try these lofty things before and then they just fail. So I am very optimistic about Ashes, though, and I think that they will deliver on this class system. So it's kind of interesting. So do you want to kind of get into, Red, how the class system works a little bit?
Yeah, so let's go through the first 8 or the 8 initial base classes. We'll kind of do a brief overview on those. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. When you just hear the name, you kind of assume what they're going to be. So the first one is Bard. Now, Bard, I know is a highly requested class in most MMOs. People love Bards. Rarely, or not rarely, but in some MMOs, you don't get the opportunity to have this specific niche little role, which is basically a support role that's not a healing role. And so Bard will fill that. Bard is an archetype in Ashes of Creation, truly a force multiplier. The Bard weaves songs of glory and conquest, inspiring his comrades to even greater heights. The Bard knows secret and powerful words, is able to speak into being terrible nightmares or convincing foes to become friends. These are really cool words. It sounds like there's going to be some type of mind control going on there. And then obviously you get your traditional songs of buffing your allies and stuff like that. So Bard's exciting, man. I played a Bard in Everquest, and it was just cool to you were known as the battery. So basically your songs allowed people to farm mobs and go through dungeons more efficiently.
Yeah, the Bard class is pretty cool, man. Not my cup of tea, but I think it's awesome to have that option in the game. And did you just say that these are really cool words? Like after you read that, did you say these are really cool words?
I might have. I've already forgotten by now. Okay. Listen, man. Never have I once proclaimed my proficiency of English speaking. Okay, and you can check the record. It's been a long line of denial, if anything. So I might have said that. Moving on. The next one, and this is one of my favorites as well. Maybe I can't say everyone's my favorite, but it'll stop after this one. Is Cleric. Obviously, Clerics is a healing archetype. In Ashes of Creation, in such a dangerous world, a cleric is never wanting for friends. They can protect their allies in a number of ways, and when necessary, snuff the life out of others. Woo. Masters over the very essence of life, they can sense the broken and corrupted. So basically, Bordy, the cleric is usually a plate type of healer that leans on like a holy type of magic. Pretty standard for MMOs, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. Is this the only healer in Ashes?
That's interesting, Bordy, and it appears to be that way. And I think that I've heard someone mention, probably Steven, that the cleric would be the main healer class. So if you want to be a healer, you would choose the cleric as your main, and then obviously you have multiple choices over what you want your subclass to be. But yes,
yeah, it seems like there's a cleric subclass for every other class though. So it seems like you could get some sort of healing with any class though, right? But I would assume cleric's going to be like the healing class.
I think you're right, because I remember hearing in an interview that was the case, that you would be able to be like an off healer or be able to help out with healing, but you never be as proficient as like a main cleric or someone who chose cleric as their main class. Yeah. So, I believe that you're right, brother. Okay. So now we're going to move on to fighter. 40. So fighter is, and this is what's interesting because they have two classes, fighter and tank. So I think most people, when they hear fighter, they hear like warrior or something like that. That would be like someone that took like damage or aggro or something like that. But the fighter is an expert in physical combat, a master of many weapons. This warrior strikes fear into the heart of his foes. So this is more like your melee DPS type of thing. It seems to be in Ashes.
Yeah, dude, sounds dope, man. That's a pretty accurate description of me IRL. I like it.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't agree with you, but yes, that might be true if you. We'll move on to Mage. Mage is an archetype of Ashes of Creation in a world of higher magic. No party would be complete without a mage. Master of the Arcane, they bring terrible elements to bear in devastation spells. If really what is wrong with me? If reality needs changing in some fashion, ask a mage to help. So this is a pretty open-ended explanation, but they do mention elemental or elemental type damage or spells in here, but it doesn't appear like that's all the mage can do.
No, I think, it seems like especially with all these subclasses, man, the mage is going to be crazy. There's going to be a lot to choose from. I typically don't gravitate towards mages in video games, man, or in MMOs, period. Like I typically don't do the whole magic thing. I don't know why, man. I just never do.
Well, it's for typically, I would say magic and mages are like more intelligent based. So there's your answer for sure.
Okay.
It's awesome because later on in the class abilities, the mages kind of, they talk about the augmentation system, and we'll move on to that later. But they have a lot of different like teleportation and elemental different variances. So it's going to be cool, because these are pretty open-ended explanations where they take these, and then through the augmentation system, what flavors of the mage you can use to augment your other classes spells. Next is Ranger. Ranger is, of course, your archetype in Ashes of Creation that will be dealing death from afar. Death from afar is the Ranger's raisins. Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure why you're even trying to read that.
This is not English. Oh no. Hold on.
Just skip that word.
Yeah. A master of the bow and ranged combat, the Ranger is more than happy to let others get their hands dirty. No one else has such a keen eye in nature's environment. Bordy, I pulled a little bit of a Ron Burgundy there, man. I just read what was in front of my face, and I said, I know that word is not raisin, but I said raisin.
I was waiting for you to get to that, man.
Yikes.
I'm not going to lie.
All right, Bordy, talk about the Ranger for me while I recover.
The Rangers seems like just a typical Ranger. I mean, all of these 8 archetypes that we're going through right here, I don't think are anything too unique or anything too crazy out of it. It's exactly what you would expect from MMORPG classes. So this is no exception. The Ranger's just going to be sitting back doing range DPS. Now, I think where it gets interesting is the augmentation, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I like Rangers in games, man. You know, that may be something I get into. We'll see.
Yeah, I tend to enjoy them as well. And I like the survival type of aspect that they typically bring. They're more self-sufficient, generally in MMOs, allowing for easier like solo play and stuff like that. And yeah, I oftentimes find myself rolling a Ranger in MMOs. So it's obviously glad to see this in here. But, you know, if we're going to move on later into the augmentation system, there's some really cool sounding subclasses in the Ranger tree. So we'll talk more about that later. Rogue. So Rogue is the archetype in Ashes of Creation that is a master of opportunity, using skill, positioning, and the environment to dish out frightening amounts of damage. In their downtime, they provide solid utility, helping their friends navigate dangers otherwise unseen. So, you know, another melee DPS which appears, and this is more, of course, of your leather-wearing backstabbing type.
Are there stealth abilities in Ashes?
I don't know that answer. I
don't know either.
Think that there would be, man, because a lot of these rogue subclasses seem to be like Predator, Assassin, Night Spell, Shadow Lord, Shadow Guardian. I would think there's some kind of stealth, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely allude to it whenever you start looking through there, but it's like I haven't seen anything specific that says, hey, there's stealth from rogues. And stealth is just always such an incredibly hard thing to balance in MMOs that it's gonna be interesting to see what Ashes has in store for that system, you know?
Yeah, someone Lore mentioned in chat that yes, there is stealth in the game, but it's imperfect. Think of like Distortion, like the movie Predator. That's pretty
okay.
dope,
So you're
dude.
not completely invisible. You're not completely stealthed, so people can still see you. Interesting. Yo, thank you for that comment. Appreciate that. Because stealth in games, man, sometimes can be really, really OP, and we've seen that in other MMOs. So hopefully they, get that right. But it sounds like it. The distorted stealth is pretty dope, I think, man. I kind of like that. It's going to be an interesting take on it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Typically, stealth is hard to balance because again, you don't want someone sneaking up on players and then just being able to stun lock and kill somebody without any notice. But obviously, there are ways that rogues can be very balanced and a fun part of the game because you're always having to look over your shoulder and everything. And I do like this kind of approach to stealth that appears to be in Ashes of Creation. So last two. First one is Summoner. So your Summoner is the Summoner is never alone. 2 hands are good. But in the Summoner's opinion, 4 hands are always better. With the right tool for every job, there's no situation that can't be handled by a Summoner that can shift their role. It seems to be on a dime. Bordy, this is one of the classes that when you look at 8 subclasses look really, really awesome, man.
Dude, this one looks crazy. So I was saying earlier that none of these are incredibly unique in terms of MMOs. The Summoner seems to be an outlier for that. All of the other ones are pretty basic. Summoner is definitely an interesting class. I don't know what we're going to be in store for here. I think it may be kind of like a Necromancer, though, is what I'm thinking. Like the Summoner is going to be after you start reading through some of their abilities. And even under the Cleric subclass, it says Necromancer. So I'm thinking that's what it's going to be. But there's some interesting things in there once you start reading about it.
Dude, so this is what's interesting. In like in Skyrim and in Everquest, there was the Necromancer, but there was also different Everquest specifically Necromancer, but there are other things that allow you to summon different like different beings other than undead beings, and some of these make it sound like you're going to be able to summon like maybe an enchanted weapon of types that kind of reminded me of Skyrim. Beastmaster, so maybe like more of a hunter, like in WoW. Enchanter, maybe you can enchant a piece of armor or a group of armor. That was an EverQuest thing. So all of these things remind me of all these different type of MMOs that have pets or that are based around pets, and it's going to be cool to see Ashes of Creation's take on these classes for sure. Last one is Tank. So as we all probably guess, Tank is an archetype that's job is to control a fight, to help the parties mitigate incoming damage, and to dictate who is getting hit. They can take an unconscious amount of punishment, and woe to those who ignore their commands. Bordy, I like that they specifically gave one of the primary classes as a tank, just kind of like they did Cleric, which is basically, I guess, healer, so to say. I like that they kind of picked this out and then made 8 variations of a way to tank.
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna be interesting. That's what's cool, man. It's the same way for all of these. There's 8 variations for all 8 classes, and it's gonna be nuts to see the builds that people come up with for this stuff. I can't wait to see all this stuff, man, in action. I just hope that they can get all this stuff right.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's move on here to the augmentation system, because it's a very important part of the class system. So basically, at level 25, which appears to be the level which you're going to make this choice at, you will choose so basically you choose one of the 8 as a primary class, and then at level 25, you're going to choose one of the 8 as your secondary class. And yes, you can change or you can pick the same class twice. So you can pick Bard, Cleric, Fighter, etc. So basically, when you make this choice, you're going to have an open up a whole new amount of choices for your character in the augmentation system. So the augmentation system is going to allow you to augment your skills and your character's abilities towards your secondary class's niche or style. So the most popular example that's kind of put out there is a warrior that has a charge ability, and they choose mage as their secondary class. And so then that would open up the ability for the warrior to either choose, maybe they can teleport instantly instead of have a charged animation. They can teleport instantly to their target to deal damage. Or maybe they can, choose for the end of their charge to have an elemental attack, like a fire type of dot damage ability. So, this, as we go into speculation here, because there's some information, but not all the information is available. Bordy, what's your initial take on the augmentation system and the secondary subclass system?
I like it, man. I think it's kind of unique, dude. Are there other MMOs that do it to this extent? I don't know of any off the top of my head.
Arcage is literally the only other one.
Yeah, okay. See, I didn't play Arcage, but I did. Yeah, okay. I do know a little bit about that system, though, and you're right. That is probably the closest thing. So one of the things I found interesting about this whole augmentation system is that it doesn't give you additional abilities or skills whenever you augment your or whenever you choose your subclass, basically. So, like for example, if you go Ranger, if you went like Ranger Fighter, then your class is then called a Strider class. Well, you get your abilities by choosing your archetype Ranger, and then you don't get anything else for choosing the Strider. It just augments the abilities you already have. So I find that incredibly interesting, man. And I kind of like that aspect of it, because you don't have like your set abilities as a rogue, and then you get additional abilities on top of that. It completely changes your class drastically, which is awesome. I really like that, because that again leans more towards there's not these cookie cutter builds, because you're not going to have 2 sets of skills. Basically, it's going to be, that is what, you are what you choose. And I like that a lot.
Yes, I agree with you, because like you had mentioned, you kind of, if you limit the amount of skills that someone can have on their action bar, and you throw double the amount of skills they have to choose from, sometimes there is skills like you had mentioned that are must-haves. So then if anybody chooses Ranger and Mage in that type of system, they all run the same amount of skills, and there isn't much variation, even though you do have a lot of classes. So this is not only going to create 64 subclasses, Bordy, but it's giving you choices within those 2 choices of how you want to augment your skills. And we had mentioned this a little bit earlier on about the mage and how it seems like they're going to have some elemental schools of augmentation and damage, but they're also going to have like teleportation things and other type of variations that you would see in a mage in a game. So, dude, I mean, like they mentioned, you can go wide on this, where like maybe you augment every one of your skills, or deep, where you maybe like, it sounds like maybe you can pick one skill and maybe augment it multiple times. So, Bordy, you know, dude, I have to kind of play your role here and be like, this is a lot to get done, or this is a lot of variation. And to pull this off well, like they had mentioned, to have 64 classes that everybody wants to play and that everybody, wants to do, it's going to be very challenging, because I think even with games with like, 12, or I mean, WoW, I guess technically has like 36 different subclasses, balancing those in a way that they're all viable is very, very challenging for them. I know, because just you look at the damage parses and everything like that, and there's always a bottom person, Bordy. So what's your take on again, all these variations and how it's going to work?
I have no idea how they're going to do it, man, to be honest with you. But they did say they're balancing around group play and not solo play. So that makes a lot more sense for something like this, because you can't balance it around 1v1s, because obviously one class is going to be stronger than the other. That's just how games go, especially when you have 64. But when you balance them around group play as a whole, that in and of itself is going to be incredibly challenging to do. I mean, so I don't know how they're going to pull it off. And then you have okay, so then you have the situation of what you mentioned, whenever you can go really deep into an augment, or you can just go wide and augment a lot of your skills. Like, how is that going to play into the balancing? So whenever you go really deep into one skill and you make that really powerful, they've got to mitigate that somehow, either increase the cooldown or something. I don't know. It's going to be interesting though, because then you can build your character around that one skill or whatever. So, dude, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, man. I honestly have no idea. But I tell you one thing though, I have faith, man. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, dude. We have the sheriff, brother.
We do. All right. So here's the most important thing we're ever going to talk about on the podcast, especially this episode, Bordy. What are you going to play? Just looking at the list, just looking at the names, just looking at the possibilities, what is going to be your main class, or the first class that you're going to roll in Ashes of Creation?
Man, I think I am going to go a fighter dreadnought, dude. How can you not play? How can you not play a class called dreadnought, brother? Like, holy crap, man. Plus, I gravitate towards like more melee DPS or even range DPS. So it's either going to be a fighter or a ranger, probably one of those two. More than likely, rogue would come in third, probably, and then tank fourth. But probably a fighter or a ranger initially, and then the dreadnought. Just because it freaking sounds amazing, dude. Like, why would I not play dreadnought, man?
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, that's a great choice. That the name alone is pretty awesome. Can you imagine? You got to make that call out. Oh, we got a dreadnought coming over the hill.
Just sounds scary.
That invokes fear into anybody's heart if you're gonna hear that. And that's it's interesting, because I wouldn't have probably. I definitely pinned you for a fighter, but maybe along the lines of something that was axe wielding, and maybe Dreadnought will be able to wield axes. Who knows?
Yeah, I typically do gravitate toward axe wielding stuff, but I think the Dreadnought, dude, it just sounds like a big axe wielding melee DPS tank build, man. That's what I'm going with.
That's very true. I think I gotta go Soul Bow right now. Seems really really cool to me. The fact that you have your ranged damage dealer, but you have some sort of support role as well. I think that would be pretty cool, man. It's definitely for me between the Soul Bow, and then probably the Necromancer, because dude, I almost in every MMO I've ever played, if Necromancer's available, I pick it. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Necro sounds cool. I'll tell you what, a Warlock sounds dope too. I told you before, I don't really play mage classes, but I'd be down to play a Warlock, man. I'd get in on some of that action. Warlocks are dope, man. That's what I played in WoW, was a Warlock. So kind of go back to my WoW days.
Yo, we've never crossed this bridge before. I'm a Warlock in WoW.
We have
something in common.
We do, only I'm probably way better at the Warlock
class. Definitely not true. You probably... The last time you played WoW was probably like 10 years
forever.
ago?
Yeah, at least. Yeah, long time ago.
Not gonna happen. All right, dude. Well, that wraps up another episode of Ashes to Go, man. Dude, it's been awesome getting the feedback from the podcast, seeing you guys, the positivity for new podcasts, and we're grateful to be in the space. Ashes is extremely exciting to us. We also have a website up called Ashes Fans that will kind of host our guides, our builds. We already have like a dev tracker that our other buddy Taken is put up there, and also like a Twitch bot. So we got a lot of things in the works and tools for you guys, part of the Ashes community. So go check out ashesfans.com, where you'll see episodes of the podcast, as well as studioloot.com, where we house all of our podcasts, as well as Ashes to Go. So, Bordy, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you can find me on Twitter at the BDLG. You can find me on YouTube. It is at the BDLG as well. And then you can find me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/BDLG. And then, of course, I'm going to be creating content for Studio Loot. And we have 3 websites under the Studio Loot brand. Ashes Fans is one of those. So we'll be pumping out content over there pretty regularly, pretty soon as well.
Yes, and I'm Redbird with Hawaii. You can find me over here at Twitch and YouTube under the same name. On Twitter is I am Redbird. We also have a Studio Loot account on Twitter. We're running every one of our pieces of content or venues of content through that. So follow Studio Loot Twitter for more updates on the podcast and all of the Ashes fan stuff as well. We appreciate you guys. Thank you to everybody in chat for hanging out. Thank you to all the listeners through the podcasting avenue as well. And we will see you on another episode next week on Ashes to Go.